Hey bass anglers, I've been on a little bit of a tube roll here lately, and I want to finish that series off with a finesse technique that's been a secret of mine here for a little while, and I want to share it with you. It'll help you get bit on those days that are calm, slick. Everybody else is using a Senko or they're downsizing, and you want an approach that will really catch you some bass in a multitude of situations. My finesse tube bait technique, I think, will help you out. It starts out with a Gitbit bait finesse tube. It's a 4-inch tube, so it's about half the body and half the tentacles. They're I would say a durable plastic, but a thin enough walled tube bait that you can do something special with, and that's the rigging of this thing. And what I'm going to use to rig this bait is an EWG style Ned hook from 3G Smallmouth Solutions. And I get this jig in the 3/32 ounce size. And that's a magic size in there. It's a little bit lighter than an 1/8, which would be 4/32. This one's 3/32. And it's all about the fall and the glide. And that's why this bait works in a bunch of different situations. But before we talk about the situations, let's get it rigged up. And we're gonna stupid tube this. And the way you rig this thing is you're gonna stupid tube rig this situation here. So I've got my 4-inch finesse tube. I'll fold the tentacles back out of the way, and I'm gonna go with the pointed end in, and I'm gonna run that thing up and kind of thread it all the way up so that it's coming out of the side of the tube, maybe about 1/4 inch from the end of the tube. The point's coming out. See that there? And then I'm gonna run that point out, and I'm going to feed the head of that up into the open end of the tentacles. Make sure I don't capture any of them here as I pull that thing through. You don't want to fold it inside out. So the trick is to get it running up in there clean. And then once you get it up in there, slide it around and the shank will pop out here on the bottom. And now you've got it like this, and you'll want to grab the front of it, fold this up so that the eye of the jig is coming out at 90 degrees on the top, and then pop that thing out. And now you've got that thing inside the tube. Okay, now the next step with this is we want this hook point right here, we want that laying flat against this tube. And you'll see here, if I hold this out of the way, it's not flat, it's coming back at that angle to the front, and we want that thing to be more flat to the top of the tube. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our needle nose pliers, and we're gonna take right under the barb, we're gonna grab that thing, and then we're gonna bend that thing out a little bit so that it's more in line with the tube. And then once we're in line, we're gonna center it up where it's going in on the backside with the jig head, push it through, and then we're running that thing straight out. Now we're T-exposed on the front side of the tube, and the wire is coming out the back like that, and the line ties on the top like that, and it's T-exposed. Now that little morsel right there, I'll typically fish this thing with 6-8 pound tops, but usually 6-pound test fluorocarbon, and I'm throwing this on weed lines. I'll fish it in a lot of locations that a lot of people would generally fish a jig minnow. You can, if the jig minnow bite dies or they've seen a million jig minnows, you can come in with this 4-inch bait fish colored tube bait, and this thing has just the perfect fall rate. It's easy to pick up on forward facing sonar or live sonar. And you can fish it on weed lines, on rock points. It's light enough, the fall is slow enough that a lot of times in those calm, difficult situations, they're eating this thing halfway down the drop. As it's dropping, they see it from the bottom and they'll rise up and grab this thing. Some of the reasons I like it are, number one, it's got a compact bait fish size. This 4-inch size comes in a bunch of variety of colors. It can be a bait fish when it's suspended or hovering in the water column if you keep it up. It can be a crawfish on the bottom, and it's not a big intimidating crawfish. It's a smaller one that maybe lost some appendages, and the bass are more apt to eat. So it's got the right size. This setup with the 3/32 ounce jig has the right fall, I think. It falls slow enough. You can even fish it into a 5, up to maybe a tops 10-mile-an-hour wind, and still is gonna fall in the water column where you send it. And then the last thing is, if you're going to fish it around a weed edge or something, it's definitely weedless. And then if you're throwing it into brush or into rocks, you're not going to get hung up. It's not going to sink down into the rocks and get buried. It's going to act very lightly on the bottom. So a unique way. I hadn't before seen anybody stupid tube an EWG Ned rig styled bait on a tube bait before, but it's super effective. Try that out on a finesse approach when everything else is kind of stalled out on you, all the traditional tactics, and you'll be happy you did. Hope that tip was helpful. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on the water.